Peace, peace, family. We are now live. We are now live. I see Shalom Sampson said she twiddling her thumbs. You ain't got to twiddle your thumbs no more. We are here. We are here, family. I got a new guest, special guest, brilliant brother. I just actually um came across this brother's information a couple of days ago. And similar to the brother Yaki, I was immediately impressed and moved by the brother's not just his information, but his energy. So I hollered at the brother right away, same day. And that's how it works sometime. Kwame Sunhorse, the elder, welcome to the program, my brother.
Greetings, Rich. Black
Hey,
Magic.
yes,
Been a
it's good.
pleasure, man, because I've been watching, but I never knew, the government name, because I was looking at what Dr. Clark used to call the New Jack Scholars. That's what y'all are. And that you all are the man, y'all are picking up the torch. And what we're doing now and seeing what you're doing is you're a magi in creating the magic, in which the magic is being able to use the techno spiritual to connect us back to the earth, to the natural spiritual, or to our essence of as being spirit. And so these are the keys that's going to help the generations, because they've already got predictions that in 45 years there will be no African Americans on Turtle Island. Because of what they're doing in depopulating. And what they're depopulating with, I would suggest your viewers get this book. It's called Gendercide and Genocide. And what they're doing in genderciding is demasculating the male, and in the census that they took, and saying that there was over 72,000 just young Black males that were killed in America. That was in 2019. And here we are in 2022. They're bringing in what? 100,000 Ukrainians. They're ethnic cleansing in Ukraine, but they're sending over their women and children. And the way that the statistics is showing us here on Turtle Island, the way they did with our indigenous brothers on the continent, here on Turtle Island, when they began to use the same thing that they did with us in 2019. This is the year of 1619 to 2019. It's a presentation I did, awakening from 400 years of history to our history of the ancestral truth. And what it talks about is this whole genocidal process that they came in and did. Over 600 million indigenous people lived in the North and the South Americas. Here in Georgia, I live in Eatonton, but the major part is up in North Georgia, it's what's called Elberton. Elberton, Georgia is the granite capital of the world. This is what part of Washington and DC, all the granite that you see in Washington and all that comes out of Elberton, Georgia. But what Elberton, Georgia was planted and seeded with was what they call the Georgia Guidestones. In 7 different languages, there are 10 commandments. And one of those commandments said there will only be 500 million people on this planet. And they devised this plan, and they have been marshaling this plan in every agenda that they set up, because we're right now in what's called Agenda 21. There's Agenda 2030, there's Agenda 2050. And these agendas are set up by something that Kissinger said, that he went to the population. He said there are too many people of color. And he said that there needs to be something done about it. And this is what the process have been since they began to see, how do we able to do this, even though we can have wars, but we can't do it on such a mass scale as they did when Cecil Rhodes and all of them went into the continent, and when they came to this continent. So we've been watching a worldwide elimination of people of melanin. And this is the part that we're beginning to understand is that how do we free ourselves? Sonia Sanchez asked that question. Whatever you do as a melanated person, you got to ask yourself, what am I going to do? You starting from within. What am I going to do? See the vision of how will it free you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to
Let me
start with,
real quick,
go
brother.
ahead.
Let me get to some ads. Like I usually do that in the beginning of the show. Then we're gonna get started. We're gonna continue because you already got started, brother. So we're gonna continue this amazing show that has already started. Family, I'm gonna get to the ads as usual. Make yourself comfortable. Share this video. Let everybody know we live. Let everybody know we got off to an amazing start. And we'll be right back, family.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself, it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Petey was with me. Order your copy of Kayla, Petey, and the Forest on Amazon today.
Hey family, this is King Simon. Don't forget about getting your new motivation session at 347-496-1022. And don't forget about the Cosmic Alignment Workshop on May the 15th. Go to zenbar.org. That's zenbar.org.
Family, also don't forget Wayne Chandlers going down May 21st. This is another elder of ours in our community, somebody that we definitely got to appreciate while the brother's here walking with us. Best-selling author, Ancient Future. He's one of the best people when it comes to Qigong. So go to WayneChandler.eventbrite.com for more information. We'll be talking about that as the weeks come up, brothers and sisters. We're going to be talking about that a lot because energy work is something that's extremely important right now. So once again, family, I'm with a new guest today, Kwame Sunhorse, for those who are coming in late. Brother, like I appreciate you starting off the show the way you did, my brother. One thing I just want to say is that there's just so much talk in 2022 about the black people, so-called black people in America, and us being indigenous to this land, and us not thinking that we're from somewhere else. That you see so many different people popping up talking about it now, and I think that it's a conversation that needs to be explored in depth. So one of the things that people are just hearing about for the first time is this word Turtle Island. So since the name of the show is The Secret History of Turtle Island, you was telling me some interesting things about Mansa Musa, brother, bringing 2,000 ships to America, all types of stuff we was talking about on the phone. But to start out with, my brother, what exactly is Turtle Island? How did this name come about? Explain in depth to the people who may not know anything about this word Turtle Island.
Well, in our lore of indigenous people, that we came out of the waters, and the turtle rose up out of the water, and his back in itself came up, and its back was representing part of Mother Earth. Because if you look at a turtle's back, and the turtle has 13 squares in its back, there are 13 moons in a cycle.
Okay.
And so there are 360 days of sun, 260 of moon. And when she rose up, this island came. But like we were saying about Pangea, and I was saying earlier when we were talking off camera, is that Pangea was what was the break off of the continent. And if you take all of the pieces of the different continents and you put them back together, you will see that it was one land mass, and Africa was the hinging part of that whole landmass. There's 7 great continents, as we were taught in geography back in my day, because I'm an elder at 72. And they said a continent is a body of land surrounded by water. Turtle Island is surrounded by water. Africa is surrounded by water. And so what you have is then you have Asia, which is surrounded by water. So if that's Asia, how do you get Germany, France, Sweden, Italy, all these other continents? They're not continents. They're not European continents. That's Asia. The only European continent is that small body of land that sits there called the British Isles. And that in itself is what dictated the part of being the European. Because in them defining themselves and renaming themselves, the part of it was that they knew that they went into the motherland and they discovered civilization. This is where you go back into Kemet, because the part of what I was talking about with Mansa Musa and his brother Mana Akbar Bukhari is the brother. Well, he stepped down from Kemet. Mana is a title like king. Mana means king. So that's why his name is more. But his name was Kenyak Abu Bukhari. And he was the nephew of a great Mali leader that founded Mali and Songhai. So what he did was, and that he wanted to do as he had done on the Niger. And he turned around and he wanted to find out, what did the Atlantic Ocean touch bases with? And so he put together and called in his armies that were fighting skirmishes, that he brought in 200 of his best shipbuilders, 200 of his best people that to design these ships that they were going to take this journey that they took in 1311 to come and see what is here on Turtle Island, because they knew that there was a connection, because even the Kemetic had brought ships here. Because if you look at historically the Aztecs, the Mayans, and how they designed what is called the Step Pyramid, that's Imhotep started off with Zoser and bringing the Step Pyramid into design, to design it all the way up to the pyramids of Giza. And so what we had was a connection, that we were still connected, even though the land masses had broken apart. We still had a connection in spirit. And so what we did was we gravitated back to connect with those that was on the landmass that broke off. And so these are the parts of the missing pages of world history that Dr. Clark, when he heard Arthur Schomburg come to Columbus, Georgia, and read The Negro Digs Up His Past, Dr. Clark ran away out of 7th grade, came to Chicago, hoboed to New York, and went to the Schomburg Library and asked Arthur Schomburg, henceforth, I want to know my people's history that you read at that assembly in Columbus, Georgia. And Arthur Schomburg said, young man, go and study the world history, and the missing pages of world history is your history. And he designed and came up that book here, African World Revolution. And what Dr. Clark spent his life studying there in New York, where he lived at, him and Mama Sybil. And they began to research and study. And when this book, when this 1311, you can get this book by Ivan Van Sertima. They came before Columbus. And this is where it was first printed into that book, but it also came out in what 1619 came from was Lerone Bennett. Lerone Bennett wrote the book Before the Mayflower. A historian. He wrote this book Before the Mayflower. And in this book, he talked about when they came to Turtle Island. They came here before the Mayflower. And what he knew is that we had been here. We had been here, left our heads in the Olmec heads down in Mexico, and formulated an ancestral recording that we had been here. So what had happened is that in 1619, there is a story in the ship that brought the 19 captives that was on that ship, that they were traded for goods. The ship name was the White Lion. The indigenous people have a goddess who is named the White Buffalo Calf Woman. Each of these places has that when you find an albino comes into a species, there is a great change that's getting ready to happen on the planet. When you have an albino species that comes, because White Buffalo Calf Woman came and delivered the sacred Chinupa, which is the Native American peace pipe, as they called it. But no, it was the way in which we learned to pray with this pipe, because what it was that the stone, the Cantalite stone that was from the blood of people that was washed into this mountain, and the standing tall, the tree, were taken female, male, and joined together as a praying tool. And you take the sacred herbs, kanik, sage, sweetgrass, you mix it together, and in your thoughts of prayer, you see your prayers in the smoke. So this is the way that we learn to communicate, which we still do today, using that sacred Chinupa. It was never no peace brought with that pipe. We offered it, but they didn't know how to take it. So what happened here on Turtle Island was that what has happened right now, because they knew that these Papyrus boats have been here before, because Ramesses sent a fleet here. And if you look at history repeating itself, April 3rd, 2020, or was it 2021, when they opened up the gem, which is the Great Egyptian Museum, when they took the 22 mummies, the date 22 mummies out of the Cairo Museum and moved it into the Great Egyptian Museum on Saturday before Easter Sunday, because there was an alignment. And what they're doing is that they know the astronomy. I would recommend, if anybody want to really get into astrotheology,
Santos Bonacci. Yeah.
Santos Bonacci breaks down the astronomy, because as above, so below. Everything that goes on in the heavens, in that heavenly body, is us as humans. Aries is the head, Pisces is the feet. All of the rest of the signs are in between, is the human body. And what we've got to do is we begin to look at what Carl Sagan says, we're just stardust, came down and formed ourselves into a vessel to take a look at our universe. Because Rumi says, Rumi, who is a Sufi prophet, and I get to study Rumi, Rumi says, everything in the universe is within you. When will you learn to use yourself? See, the challenge of change and the 4 laws of change in Native American teachings from the white bison spirituality, it says you start from within, then you have a vision. And in the vision, you see, like I said earlier, Sonia Sands said, how is this going to free us? Because in the vision, King had a dream. That's a vision. And so we've got to look at how do we reconnect, because we have been herded again on this Turtle Island in 2022. We have just broken back out into circulation, but the urbanization plantation is by design, because the word in itself, urban, means that you take 1,000 people and then you put them in a square mile radius. A country mile is longer than a city mile. You take those same 1,000 people and you put them on a rural mile. You got them spread out on land, because land is the basis of all economics. And we have to begin to understand it's 3 things that makes economics possible. Number 1 is land. Number 2 is the mineral resources that come from the land and the labor that works to bring those mineral resources out of the land. Number 3 is management, government, heads of state, all of those people that put themselves in control over the labor and the resources that come from the land creates the economics. Gil Scott-Heron said, whosoever controls your resources control your world. Whosoever controls your resources controls your world. And this is what we're seeing happen. Because in the part of we being stewards and made to be caretakers of the planet, someone decided that was outside of their color complex, and decided to say that we own this. And we was like, wait a minute, what do you mean you own this? Because if you look at the English language, is the only language that has an army and a navy. And why do I say it's the only language that has an army and a navy? Because every country that it went into to change people's language, they use force. They went into the land, they used their army and their missionaries, and if you did not change your language, you were killed. You had to learn to take their spell and give up your language and not to speak your mother's tongue, to disconnect you from who you are. Because as it says in their book, the Helios Biblios, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. So that means every word that we think, speak, write has power. Because I tell anybody, you open up any book and you look at what color are the words? Black. What are they on? White. What is the most powerful thing on that white page? The black. We got to take it back. And so going on with Amu Baraka, when he decided to do that, that's when his brother made his Hajj to Mecca. They just was in New York. I know I've got the book.
You talking about his brother Mansa Musa?
Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa exhibit was just at the African American Museum in in Washington, D.C. And they had his exhibit. This is the exhibit book from the exhibit.
Hold up. Caravans of Gold Fragments in Time. So this is the gentleman that was the richest man in the world, Mansa Musa.
That's Elon Musk in our skin. Richer than Elon Musk. He brought the world gold prices down after he made his Hajj to Mecca. And so what they did is that his brother took his wealth, put those 2,000 ships, which had their wives, supplies, sorcerers, physicians, educators, all were on that. Each ship had its supply with it. And they came and they landed in what is now what we call Brazil. And in Brazil, they began to explore and began to connect with the indigenous people of that land. And as they began to explore, they came out and went up the continent and went up and came into the Gulf of Mexico. And guess what? They discovered that there's a Nile River in the west called the Mississippi. And they decided to do what? To explore it. And so what did they do? They went and they explored it all the way up. And where does the Mississippi River begin? Most people don't know, thinking that Mississippi begins in a little lake in 10,000 lake state called Minnesota. It's the land of 10,000 lakes and 12,000 earth mounds. And in that part of them traveling, they interconnected with one of the first great cities on Turtle Island was Cahokia. Over 25,000 people there on the Mississippi River, a whole civilization, which is on the other side of it's on the Illinois side in East St. Louis. And on the other side is the Jefferson Memorial. They put up their silver Stargate, trying to connect to what our ancestors knew by building their Stargate and their city on that ley line, because directly we will see happen. 2017 was the eclipse across America. 2024 will be the second eclipse America. The first one came from the west to the east. The second one will come from the east to the west, southwest, and they will crisscross right there where Cahokia is in the Mississippi, because it's in perfect alignment and why they built it to connect with the heavens. And so when he came here, but what he did is that he found, they had found maps that had already been papyruses that had been already designed. The Nile River, the Mississippi River, North and South America had already been designed on a map. The other part of the story is that what we see right now, when I said that they took the 22 mummies out of the Cairo Museum, right now, today, I think it's still there in Houston, Texas, Ramesses II's exhibit and his mummy sits in Houston, Texas Museum on exhibit. Why is that? Because this realignment in the heavens, coming back into the age of the new era of Harem-Het, and Harem-Het is Leo, which is the lion, which is the Sphinx that's sitting there, which is where the great museum has been placed next to. Mm-hmm. The museum is built by Chinese and an Irish architect. That's who designed supposed to be the fourth great pyramid. Mm-hmm. And in them designing this pyramid, what they did is they had to align it with where President Obama was the only American president to ever visit the Pyramid of Giza and the Sphinx. Why was that? Because President Obama's birthday is on August the 4th. I think that's right. And he's a Leo. So he had to be in office in which they came up, because there was an alignment coming up in 2012. Everybody talked about December 21st, 2012, the great reset of the galactic calendar. That's all it was a reset. We had made 25,920 years, because this planet's solar system stays in each zodiac sign 2,160 years. All 12 signs comes out to be 25,920 years to take that circle around the Milky Way galaxy to come back to the waters of Nu and start the journey of the golden age again. They knew he had to be there, but it wasn't for him being there as so much was who was in the White House. 4 Black women. Michelle's mother, Michelle, Sasha, and the other one. Those 4 Black women, because the Black woman is the origin of all human species. She had to be at the beginning, because Washington, D.C. is designed off of the architect of Memphis in Kemet. Mm-hmm. So what they did was, in following the Temple of Dendera, if you go to Charles Finch, he has an excellent YouTube called Heaven Wheel. Dr. Charles Finch. He taught at Morehouse College, but he's also an Egyptologist. Mm. And he showed where all of this is coming into alignment with the heavens, because as we changed and we coming into Aquarius era, the North Pole star has to change because we've changed. And the North Pole star is in Dracos right now. Mm-hmm. It's moving into what is called Cepheus. Mm-hmm. Cepheus is the Ethiopian king. The Ethiopian king. Andromeda is his daughter. She's the chained woman, and she's going to be unchained. These are all the things in which our ancestors knew, because the astral me was part of the knowledge of knowing ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what we did. I studied and danced with his name was Chief Light Golden Eagle.
You want to get some water real quick, brother? You want to get some water?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to
get some. Yeah, take a break, man. Shit, you've been going on for 30 minutes. Let the brother take a break. Get some water, brother. Yeah, you doing your thing, black man. I appreciate it, my brother. Family, we got over 1,500 people in the chat. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. Do not be on this page if you have not hit that like button. This is definitely something that we should all appreciate going down right now. We are in some important times. I got to do what I got to do this year. I'm stepping up big time. And this brother the ancestors just led me straight to this brother. So, y'all see what the results are, brother doing his thing. I'm happy. I'm happy. This is amazing.
Thank you, man. I needed this, cause
no problem, brother. No problem.
I sometimes forget I have to drink it because I run out of saliva.
Yeah, you was going off, man. You was going off.
Yeah,
brother.
but this, and I'm thanking you because everything is in divine order.
Yeah,
and this needs to be talked about, because what we're getting ready to create, or what we've been creating, is what Harriet Tubman did back to 1619. She did. Her birth was in Maryland in 1619, August 22nd, 1619. But when she was 29, she made the Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And what she did is she began to follow the Big Dipper. And she knew that the Big Dipper was a swastika. Because the thing that people understand, that's where the design for the swastika came from.
The Big Dipper.
Because every season, you go outside now in the spring, it's pointed north. You come in the summer, it will point east. You go into the fall, it'll point south. You go to the winter, it'll point to the west.
Mm-hmm.
It changes direction, but each time you do it, that dipper changes. So that's how they designed that swastika, following, because you see it on the walls of Kemet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in them designing that, they knew that this is the way that you know true north, and began to follow. So Harriet, deciding that she had to be free, she in turn began to follow nature and the stars. And she developed what was called the Underground Railroad. There were two underground railroads, really.
Mm-hmm.
There was a real underground going to the north, and underground going to the south, because the Spanish was still in control of Florida, and it wasn't a state. So they would come in, and the Yamasees, the PDs, and the different Indians, Creeks, and the escaped Africans would come together, and they hid off in the Everglades, the same way that runaway slaves ran away in Virginia and hid in the Dismal Swamps.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew how to work and live in that type of environment, because where do we come from? Forest areas and marshland in continent. So in that part of them being able to establish themselves, we began to see the nations unify. And this is where I was talking about when Akubari went up the Mississippi. He met up with the First Nation people, who are the Algonquins, Iroquois. The First Nations are Algonquin, Iroquois, Seneca, Mohawk, Ojibwe.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the First Nation people. And those were the first ones who were seen by the invaders, because I'm showing you the one with 1311 came here. But see, even Christopher Columbus, if I can turn this around. Christopher Columbus, but there's a book called Africa and the Discovery of America by Leo Weiner. And Columbus himself, in his own logs, read off, according to the renowned American historian linguist Leo Weiner of Harvard University, one of the strongest pieces of evidence to support the fact that Black people sailed to America before Christopher Columbus was a journal entry from Columbus himself in Weiner's book, Africa and the Discovery of America. He explains Columbus notes in his journal that the Native American confirmed Black-skinned people had come from the Southeast in boats trading in gold-dipped spears. Trading with gold-dipped spears. This was Columbus' own words in his own logs. In being able to give authenticity to our being here before he even didn't get to America, because he was in Hispaniola. He was in what is now today Haiti and Santo Domingo. That's as far as he got before they took him back and charged him with heresy or something they charged him with. But the next thing that came, that we see the invasion today, 1421, the year of China's discovery of America, in the paperback, June 3rd, 2008, by Gavin Menzies. Gavin Menzies wrote a book about China's fleet coming here to America in 2021. That they sent out a fleet of ships that came here and landed, and then when they began to return, they found out that the emperor had been overthrown and they had lost what they was attempting to establish here. Okay. What we look at traditionally, 1621. This is where you talk about the Pilgrims and the massacre that happened there in the Northeast, in Massachusetts Bay Colony, proclaimed the day of Thanksgiving for the end of the fighting and the safe return of the soldiers. Okay.
All right.
Okay, one last thing. I'm gonna do what it was when I was telling you about smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
But weapons alone can't account for the breathtaking speed with which the indigenous population of the New World were completely wiped out. Within a few generations, the continent of America was virtually empty of their native inhabitants. Some academics estimate that approximately 20 million may have died in the years following the European invasion. Up to 95% of the population of America, no medieval force, no matter how bloodthirsty, could have achieved such an erroneous level of genocide. Instead, the Europeans were aided by a deadly secret weapon they weren't even aware they were carrying, called smallpox. But can I share one thing that was able to happen to help clear that epidemic?
What?
The Africans that were brought to Haiti and Philadelphia. I would say get Ross Ben's book, The Mystery of Philadelphia. And in his book, he talks about the smallpox epidemic that broke out there. The African that was brought there, his master, and he told his master, he says, we had this thing going in, they were called cowpox. And what we do is that we just take the pus off of the person and you rub it on yourself, all over yourself from the person that's dying, you rub it on yourself and you create an antidote, or like you do with a snake bite. You put the poison on you in order for your body to develop a defense.
Right.
So that's who taught them how to make a vaccination for smallpox.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let me so this is the thing. You know, you mentioned Ramesses, you mentioned Mansa Musa's brother, you mentioned them coming in contact with the people that were already here. What we want to know, the so-called African Americans, is, were we from that group that came from Mali? Were we already here? Where do we come from? You mentioned Africa. Are we from Africa? Or were we just always here? Where do we come from? It's still a little confusion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, there's two ways of looking at that. What they're right now looking at is genetics,
mm,
the human genome. And you can go to Time Magazine, Newsweek, 1988. There was an issue, The Real Adam and Eve. You used to have a black Adam and Eve on there on the thing. And what they did was, I think her name was Can. And what she did was Emory University here in Georgia, Oxford in England, Berkeley in California, collected 147 placentas, because the placenta carries the mitochondrial DNA. It holds the whole human record. And them learning to decode the human genome. And what they did was they got it and they checked and found out that the human of this planet, Homo sapiens sapien, comes from one female who was the Dwat woman, or the Sand people there in South Africa. All of the species of humans derive from those two people, those people there in the South Africa. Yes, they found the Neanderthal, they found Danquesh. When the African walked into Lakey's tent and he was playing Lucy in the Sky by Diamond by the Beatles, and they claim that she is 3.5 million years old. All oldest record of human skeletons and remains from Neanderthals or different is all been found on the continent. That's why I go back to saying that when you look at Pangea and the Great Divide, people were left here that was there. So we're still one people.
okay.
And so we come up with the concept of miseducation because it happened in the Berlin Conference in 1834, when Count Bismarck proceeded to have all of the different countries sit there in Bismarck, Germany, and take a map of Africa and divide it like a pie. And we've been divided ever since because they had to justify the slave trade. Because, see, in them discovering the continent and the civilizations there, as everybody else in the stories of the books, Abraham was sent to Egypt. Joseph and Mary was sent to Egypt. The prophet Muhammad was brought to Egypt to Ethiopia by David Ben Herd and Bilal. All of those spiritual books that were derived from those prophets all learned in Kemet. And so when you look at monotheism, which Akhenaten and Nefertiti began, is because they had idols and things and that they were worshiping, and he decided to change it and said that we will only honor the sun. So we, knowing that the sun is our life force, and being able to recognize the sun's energy we began to form a relationship with that, because go back to their book and it says, in the beginning, he said, let there be light. He named the sun, the moon, the stars and constellations, the signs and the seasons. The signs are Aquarius through Pisces, or it was 13, but Aquarius through Pisces. So what we having is the astrotheology, which is the astro me. And what we're looking at, we're taking the concept of what Dr. Bobby E. Wright called menacide. We're taking someone else giving us a name that isn't our own, because for the reality of it is, this language is not our own. This is not our true language. So how do we look at what happened with the missionary schools here in Turtle Island in the invasion, and taking the children and putting them into Catholic missionary schools and degrading children, raping, murdering, and taking away their language, taking away their culture, and putting them into whiteness, destroy the people. It destroyed them mentally, more damaging than it did with the wars that we had between them. And so what we're seeing now is a rebirthing of the human mind battling itself to stay alive with the artificial mind, because divine intelligence is always going to be greater than artificial intelligence. And so what we're now challenged with with the energies from above is why I say we need an overground railroad and to create oasis. And I mean, I use the word oasis because in the desert, there are oases, which is vegetation and water that help supply life. But in the part of us here, we have water and vegetation in the land because our ancestor spirit is in service when we come back to the land. That's why I went back to your band. You're banned from nature. DSM-4, DSM-5 has two new things of mental illness: nature deficit disorder and ascension disorder. Nature deficit disorder. That means that you are living in a box and disconnected from nature, that is causing a disruption in your mental
It's
spirit.
powerful. Yeah.
So if you come back and you begin to create these spaces, just as Underground Railroad had stations and Harriet Tubman was conductors, we all can become conductors in being able to do like I'm doing tomorrow. That's going to the oasis, because crystal is the most powerful thing in the mineral world besides melanin. I mean, melanin is more powerful than crystal, but what we're looking at is silica. We're on a computer that's made from what? Silica. We couldn't be transmitting this if it wasn't for the crystal. The crystal made the computer. And so what they're saying now is that we're evolving from a Homo sapien to a Homo spiritus. This is the next evolution in this 25,000 year next journey coming around. And so what we're looking at is the periodical chart. We're coming from a carbon base to a silica base, because we're definitely hooked into silica, because everything we're doing is connected to the computer.
Right.
Robotic.
Indeed.
How do we change? How does that free us?
Yeah. You know what's just listening to you tell a story about Ramesses being over here, and even Mansa Musa's brother bringing sorcerers, engineers, doctors, bringing the best ships to the Americas.
Right.
Like, it makes me think, how did they conquer the best? The best of us got conquered?
Well, we got
Like, damn.
emulated, because what they did is you take Rosicrucians. There was a brother who was a slave, boarded a ship and went to the Middle East, and he learned the trade of sexology, and the power of sex and the energy of what the divine feminine is empowered to and help a man to bring out of him. Because sex only stands for what Freud took it. Sigmund Freud was an Egyptologist, and he took Seb and he dropped the B, which was the breath, and put the X on it, saying sex. Because sex stands for a spiritual energy exchange. Spiritual energy exchange. When a male and a female exchanges energy, it creates a new spirit. It's not lust, and it's not, if you go to any dictionary, look up the word lush, the word up under it will be lust. Ain't no other word together. Those two words go to simultaneously, they go together. Lust and lush. Me being a recovering alcoholic and drug addict, I know what that did, because it's the same thing that the Native American found out in 1750. That was the basis of AA and narcotics, and all these anonymous came out of what they call the mind changer. Because the mind changer is something that both continents experience. It's three things, and it's three things today that still has our people in captivity and keeps them in captivity as long as we keep submitting to it. Number one was rum. Rum is a drug. And so rum, we got more liquor stores and more drugs now in our communities. Number two was guns. We manufactured no guns. They traded guns in order to give us to kill each other while we were drunk. We're still doing it today. Number three is cloth. Cotton was king. The best cotton came from where? Best cotton sheets you can sleep on is what? Egyptian cotton. Because that's where the best of the cotton was. And so you see these same three things that are right now today used in the new slave trade, because we were never free. Emancipation Proclamation. A proclamation is a reading and saying that we will do this, as this person said. But when you look at Law's Dictionary and look at emancipation, you emancipate a child, you just freed him from his parents, but you put him in the ownership of the state. You freed him from the master, and you put him into the district, to the Department of Corrections called Washington, D.C. And so now you had a new master, and you had a new system called debt slavery, sharecropper. And you just now, and taking it to the next level, you went through an agriculture age, industrial age, and the industrial age was really powerful, because taking that cotton and turning it into thread and showing it how it could weave together created the mindset to create the web. But we have been watching the spiders creating webs in Africa. That's why only men weave kente cloth. We knew how to bind the threads together to make them strong and whole. But what we seen was, in giving that to these people, it began to bind us and hold us down. And so now we've got another web, because there's 4 prophecies in which the indigenous people here on Turtle Island say that the spider will spin a web around the earth, that the eagle will land on the moon, that the black snake will cross the north parts of this continent of Turtle Island, and that when the women stand up to sing, we will all begin to be free again. Because every man has a belly button. We all came out of a woman. And when the mother is disturbed, as Mother Earth has become, we are in a changing, systematic change, no matter how much they're trying to technologically bind us again.
Could you elaborate on those 4 things? Like when you said when the eagle lands on the moon, what exactly?
When the eagle lands on the moon is that when what we looked at, and what I have This book here was started by this Native American way.
Right. The
Okay.
red road. What did it say? The red road
Red
to
road to well-briety, to recover in the Native American way, in the way in which I told you about 1750, and we started about the mind changer. Don Coyers worked for NASA. He was an engineer in designing in 68, 69, the Land Rover that was sent to the moon. And what he did is that he put an eagle feather inside of the moon. The Land Rover that went to the moon. That was part of the prophecy and being able to do that. The spider spin a web around the world. We see it.
It's the World Wide Web. Yeah.
But you have to understand that this new spinning of the web cannot compete with what's called the Wood Wide Web. The Wood Wide Web is what they made in Avatar, and then the roots connected to the people. And being able to connect this whole internet system of plant life. All of these plants are relatives, but they're all connected. And now we're discovering even more. If you watch the movie on Netflix, Fantastic Fungi, that shows you the interconnectedness of the plant relatives and how they die and reproduce a whole network of fiber, just like we're doing now, creating fiber optics. These plants have been connecting throughout this planet and being able to reproduce over millions of years, keep reproducing itself. So that's the part what we see with the spider spinning a web around the world. The black snake was Standing Rock. That this snake, this oil line was going to come across the north, trying to take this land from the people. And so that part again. And the fourth one is when the woman begins to get up and sing. Women are crying, and they're crying a song because they're hurting and seeing what's happening to life that comes from their womb. And they're singing that song because every man comes from a woman because he has a belly button. And so that's why I said, when you go back to the mitochondrial DNA, all life is male, female, and even in the conception and the making of the being in the cell is female. It changes in what we call the embryo, and then you call the fetus. And in the fetus stage, you got 7 months in that. Your 2 months is as an embryo. You're like a tadpole. And then that brain those cells develop the connection to the spirit of what makes the brain. And that tail comes down and begins to grow the body. And the woman's XY chromosome determines that part of what male, will it push it out or will it hold it and take everything up in her? And that's the part of the male-female development in it. But in each one that's transformed, because I said it's a female, is because when I was growing in my mother's womb, I have the sperm that I used to make my 7 children. You have the sperm that you use to make your children. The woman carries the egg when she's in the womb. So when a woman conceives, she's carried 3 generations.
It's powerful.
And what we're having to understand, our ancestors knew this because they say 14 generations, you go back 7. Because you look at your father had a mother and father that had a mother and father. Your mother had a father and a mother. They had a mother and a father. And you go back, that's 7. Now you come forward. you are getting ready to make, and if you wed, your children. So when that woman conceives, what you produce in that spiritual energy exchange, that's 3 generations right there.
Mm-hmm.
So when those generations get into adolescence, they create the next 3 generations. 3 and 3 is 6, and 1 is 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's how our ancestors looked at it. They're saying 7 and 7, but everything it deals in 7.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the pyramids are based by 3 by 4 to equal 7 to the 1.
You're talking a little bit about
3, and then you got the base of 4, which is the 4 directions, the 4 stages of life.
Mm.
Okay, good question.
No, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
No, I was just giving that example because this is the symbology that we lit where our ancestors left us to see these sacred symbols. Because we wrote it, because in the beginning was the what? The signs and the seasons. The signs are symbols. We wrote in Medu Neter, the words of God were pictures. A picture is worth more than 1,000 words. This spell that we're in, using this language, of spells, keeps the mind captive. Because when we understand how to break the spell, we begin to counteract the words and saying, instead of saying oasis, or my thing was breaking the spell, saying people get up like good morning, good morning, good morning. I said, no, grand rising. I'm rising with the greatest thing that rises is the sun. That's the grandest thing that's happening. I'm not mourning anything. So we have to learn to change the language, because when you change your thought, you change your perception of how you see the world and yourself.
It's very true. Very true, my brother. Very true.
Yeah.
You was talking, there's a lot of important areas in America. We was talking about Georgia. You was talking about it being a granite state and it being on the 33rd parallel. You was also connecting Sedona with the pyramids in Giza, with Stone Mountain.
No, the pyramid of Giza, I was talking about. That's why I said they brought Ramesses to reconnect in Houston, because just below Houston is Galveston, Texas.
No, also when we was off camera, remember the ley
Yeah,
lines?
I know,
Okay.
I'm going
All right, okay.
there. But what I'm saying, and right there, Ramesses is there, because in Galveston, Texas, there's 3 crystal pyramids called the Moody Pyramids. They sit on the 29.6 latitude. You can draw a straight line on that 29.6 and they will connect to the Pyramid of Giza. They just put an extension cord and connected themselves into the pyramid. And they brought the person that came here to give them the knowledge to connect. Then you triangulate and you look at Georgia. Georgia sits on it, and Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida all fit into, and I don't have them in here, they're out on the porch. They've got a crystal that is found there in is found in Georgia, it's found in South Carolina, it's found in North Carolina. Geologists has proved they call skeletal quartz. That skeletal quartz is the same skeletal quartz that's on the west coast of Africa.
Same ones.
They're identical. They come from the same stones or whatever. They just broke off and they still growing.
Wow. It's fascinating information, man. Real fascinating information. Let's take some questions from the people. I know the people are excited. Yeah, they want to ask some questions. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show, my brother. It's been a pleasure.
Thank us.
Talking.
And I say thank us is because when I say us is that we're united in spirit. We're one spirit. And if we can begin to change the language, not just you thanking us for coming, for the 2 spirits coming together to unify and bring the message to the people.
I'm gonna say that from now on. I'm gonna say that you done told me, gave
Right.
me some game. I want to thank us. That, I mean, how does that sound? I would like to thank us. I'm gonna use that.
See?
I'll be like, yo, I want to thank us. Yeah, okay, brother, I got you. I got you. I
Okay.
want to thank us, family.
Right.
Y'all gonna hear me say that from now on.
Yeah,
From the
because
brother
see,
Kwame Sunhorse. Yeah.
the thing you're saying is no I and we.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm.
people. A person is a person because they're people.
Indeed, yeah. Person is a person because they're people. Yes, I got you, brother. Let's get to some of these questions. Oh, family, before we continue, make sure you show support to the channel. Hit up the Cash App. Do you have a Cash App, brother Kwame, that the people might, if they want to support
Kwame's
you?
son at Kwame's son. $ Kwame's son.
It's just $ Kwame son, right?
Yeah. I want to reference
Yeah.
some things that I was sharing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Shonda Bookman. It's an excellent book. You're talking about the Black Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And this she discloses a lot of our history and the thing from the women's point of view. And then you got to look at when I was talking about the mitochondrial DNA
Mm-hmm.
and connecting to the tree
Mm-hmm.
and to the root. See what she's holding in her hand? She's holding the world in her hand.
That looks very interesting. Melanin empath.
Right. This is who wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Another good book. My brother is a psychologist, and because we look at this word here,
Mm-hmm.
psychology, Freud took that. Psych means spirit,
Mm-hmm.
because our souls are wounded, and the wounded soul is what the indigenous people look at. And here's an indigenous psychologist is taking it and saying the healing of the soul wound. Our brains are not wounded, it's our spirits.
Mm-hmm.
We're disconnected because we say what? Spirit, mind, and body. The spirit helped the brain grow the body. That's how they connect. That's why you say it in that sequence. Eduardo Duran. I'm just giving references to
No,
certain.
definitely. Excellent. Excellent.
I would tell people, and you heard me spoke, Bobby E. Wright. The oldest book in the world was written by Asa Hilliard.
Mm-hmm.
Asa Hilliard, Larry Williams, and Nia Damali. She's got a bookstore right there in Greenbrier Mall. This is an excellent book by Dr. Bobby E. Wright. This is where I talked about menticide, the mental suicide that we've been trained to hate and decide. This is a newer edition. This was the original edition.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in college at Malcolm X College in Chicago, he came and spoke about that. Him and Frances Cress Welsing. She wrote, that's when she had wrote the Cress theory of color confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
And when she met Neely Fuller, she put it all together and made the ISIS papers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a
yeah, that was great, man. I'm definitely gonna get some of them books. The Melanin Empath is number one on the list that I'm gonna get. But yeah, definitely, I got the Bobby E. Wright. Yeah, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Let me start with these questions. Yeah, what you said?
You asked about the indigenous people, right?
Yes.
And I was talking about the missionary schools.
Murder by decree, the crime of genocide in Canada.
They did it. This is how they did. They were mass graves that they've been digging up now. We gotta get the story, because the missing pages of world history is our story.
You're right about that. You know, somebody one of the first questions I seen, a good question, you was talking earlier about the turtles. And the individual said, does the marking on the turtle's back represent the first republic set up here in America?
No, it represents the moon cycle because that's the way our ancestors looked at it. It wasn't the first republic.
I thought maybe it might be both. That's what I thought when I seen that question. All right, let's what was the name of the southeastern parts of the Southwest Midwest territories before the current states' names? Current states' name, yeah.
Okay, well, you have Equianus, I think his name was. He was the one who guided DeSoto, and DeSoto, that's who discovered Arizona and New Mexico. And then you have Oklahoma, means the red land. And Oklahoma, I would ask people to get this book. The richest young teenage millionaire in America was in Oklahoma. This is how the FBI got started.
Ooh, interesting.
J. Edgar Hoover was sent to Oklahoma because they were killing the Indians because they were living in mansions, having white people chauffeur them around because they owned oil. Black and red Indians. And the government sent J. Edgar Hoover to Oklahoma to investigate why these white people were killing these indigenous and black men that were part of this Osage nation.
Damn, I'm gonna have to do a show on that. That within itself is a whole show. Wow.
But that's the same thing we're looking at. What else was there? Where you think Tulsa came from?
Tulsa, yeah, Black Wall Street, yeah. There's a whole lot of Tulsa, Oklahomas, huh?
Right.
Whole lot of Black Wall Street.
You had Auburn Street right here.
Yeah.
You know, even if it had to been for Ida B. Wells and a brother, a millionaire named Rush, there wouldn't be no Memphis, Tennessee, because they were going to take their corporation, and the brother bought the corporation back.
I didn't hear you mention the word Moors at all tonight. You mentioned a lot of names. I didn't hear the word Moors. Anything?
I did. Black. Moor means black.
Okay, let's get to the next question. Can he explain what happened to the Yuki Indians in South Georgia?
The Yuki Indians.
I hope I'm pronouncing.
I'm seeing what the Yuki.
Yeah. Yuchi.
I'm not familiar because the only things was here. It started off with the Mississippians. Then you had a spinoff was the Creeks, the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and I think they're talking about the ones that were connected with Florida, with the what now is called Seminoles, but there were like I said, there are many nations that they become extinct. I can't speak to those.
Okay. Somebody wants to know, was Atlantis over here, aka Atlanta?
No, Atlanta. I mean, what we call right now is Arklantis is really what we're looking at Arkansas because of that. And what we're looking at also is the lands in the Gulf of Mexico because there are pyramids in that. Then you have lands that's off the coast of Cuba. Whole cities are there with pyramids and temples there up under. So when this great land divide came, and they saying that the destruction was partially of Atlantis was from the energy that we were misusing the crystalline energy and bringing up too much power. And that was part of the reason in which, because Mu, Lemuria, and Atlantis were all interconnected in that Pangea region, were breakoffs.
How were we misusing this crystal energy? What were we doing?
Because what we were doing is we were transmitting too much power into, just like we're doing now. You're running CERN, you're running 5G, which is the same as oxygen. You're transmitting and making these electric cars. Now you're going to create these EMF boxes that's going to be electronically messing with your brain cells and messing with your whole genetic system. So in this doing this is what they're doing. It's just like now they have, okay, you're talking about nuclear war, but they forget about neutron bombs. Mm-hmm. Neutron bomb is a bomb you can shoot over the city and knock out every power grid in that area. Mm-hmm. And so these are the tools in which of mass destruction that man is making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's get to the next question. Is North America the northern gate of Africa?
No. Because we broke off, we're west of Africa. We're in the west. Africa's in the east. The north is Asia. Asia, that's why I gave the geographic talking about a continent is a body of land surrounded by water. Mm-hmm. And so if that was connected, because that's where the Suez Canal and the Nile emphasis into the Mediterranean, those waterways were smaller. And this is where these land masses came, because they dug that Suez Canal just like they did the Panama Canal in order to take the shipping route and cutting down the time and going, instead of coming around the Horn of Africa, sailing around and going down and then coming back up. They cut that pathway in there to cut down the time for commercial progress. Mm.
I had a brother.
Like one other thing that China is doing, and then China is doing that, but China is creating the trade road, which is going to be the railroad that's going to run across Asia, which is similar to what was happening before when they were running it out of Italy and the Vatican, and running a Marco Polo, running that Silk Road. Mm-hmm. But what happened was, and people have to understand, we talk about the Atlantic slave trade. And if you look at the slave trade, there was the Ottoman slave trade, there was the Sahara, Trans-Sahara, the East African slave trade, and the South African slave trade. They were not as vicious, and it wasn't like, that's how China was trading in the East African trade, because they wasn't really saying as such as slaves, because the emperor's first army were the warriors of Nubia. And you look at the warriors of Nubia, because some of the great warriors of Nubia, and what is his name? He wrote it in, I can't think of his name right off the top of my head, but he talked about the great warriors of Nubia. Taharqa was one of the great warriors of Nubia, and these warriors were sent to protect the emperors of China, because China's ships were bringing the animals from the continent of Africa into China. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Powerful. I got a brother that's been on the show before. He goes by the name Turtle Gang. He's from the Lenape tribe. He says, "Peace, brother." Yeah, Lenape tribe. He said, "Peace, brother. This brother's on point. Our first calendar is the turtle shell."
Right.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't know that either. The first calendar was the turtle shell. That's interesting. Let's get to let me find another question. Real questions there. We got a lot of people in the chat talking, but I don't see a lot of okay. Ask him if he got a measure for us for April 30th eclipse. Great mother energy coming.
Yes, and that's a great. See, what we had was April the 1st was a new moon, and April 30th is going to be a new moon, but it's going to be a partial solar eclipse in the southern hemisphere. We'll get the energy in the planet. We won't get to see the actual eclipse. But what we're looking at is a great time, because they use our magic, our alchemy, is that when you have these energies, it's like a reboot. When you're doing your ceremony, and doing your spiritual work in this reboot, it's like you're rebooting your computer from Windows 95 to Windows 2010. Because all of that energy is coming down, and then when that sun and moon lets the moon come back out, or when the sun is switching light and turning it off, it's just a reboot. We're getting the boot. But what I was talking about is the 5 planet alignment. But you even have to go back to July 4th, 2020. I think this is when the conjunction of Pluto. Pluto only makes its turn around to its return to its sign every 248 years. You will never see, nobody will see Pluto return again. We'll see our Saturn return because it's 28 to 39 years. And that's the way that these planets align. Pisces, I'm a Pisces, and Jupiter on April 12th, Jupiter and Neptune were in the sign of Pisces because Jupiter is the original planet that represented Pisces until they discovered Neptune. And both of them were in the sign because Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2012. And it will stay there. It's 100 years that it'll be in that sign. So you have to understand as above, so below. And when you understand, like people go, oh, Mercury retrograde, that's communication. Mars is the god of war. Venus is the god of love. You know, the part of it is each one has its energy. And I think it was August 1987, what was called the Harmonic Conversion. That meant that all 9 planets was in one straight line. One straight line, all from Earth, all the planets were in one straight line. They called it the Harmonic Conversion. Those only happens in sequential times of great change. And so what we're doing, as above, so below. This is why we're having to that's why Earth, Wind, and Fire, keep your head to the sky. Fifth Dimension said, Jupiter aligns with Mars. What is we having right now in the sky? Jupiter is aligning with Mars. All of the signs are here. We just have to tune back into ourselves. We're in distortion of these 5G frequencies, which is scrambling the cosmic consciousness that's down, but they can't stop it. It cannot be stopped.
Man, it's powerful, brother. Saw a map of the Louisiana Purchase of 1904. That map was shocking. Can you speak on that?
Right, because the Louisiana Purchase wasn't Louisiana. That was Arkansas, Missouri, and all the way up to Canada. That was the Louisiana, and the 25, what was it, 25 million or 25,000 is because the Louisiana Purchase was to save Napoleon, because Toussaint and Desailly kicked the French butt in Hades in 1804, that they had to go back home and they had to sell us this land.
Indeed.
And that's the power of the Louisiana Purchase, because our people knew, remember I was saying about Cahokia was aligned with the Stargate and that part. In Louisiana is Poverty Point. Poverty Point, if you look at Poverty Point, it's set up in the way, if you ever look at the map of the HARP antennas, it's set up the same way, because the grid at the Mississippi, the mouth of the Mississippi, is a transmittal port. You have stations. It starts in the Lake Itasca in Minnesota. Midway Point is there at Cahokia. The end result, dumping into the Gulf of Mexico, because you've got to understand one thing about water, and they showed you this in The Secret. Water holds memory and consciousness. Memory and consciousness. Our bodies is 70%, our brains is about 80% water. What we're doing now is activating through this divine intelligence coming down and reactivating the body. And when they talk about the climate change and the water melting in the Arctic and the water melting in the Antarctic and things are going to flood, no. Creator knew what he was doing. That's why he froze that memory million years ago, because he knew he was going to have to release it. Because once it melts and drops in the ocean and evaporates and goes up and absorbs into the cloud and turns into fresh water and rains down upon the earth, you're bringing back memory and consciousness from millions of years ago.
That is powerful. I heard you say that. So that's frozen memory. The ice age.
Yes.
The ice age, frozen memory.
That's it. And what are people doing? What are we doing now? Cryogenics. You're freezing your body until they can find the science to reawaken you.
Man, you came with it tonight. Came with it tonight, brother. Ancestors is with you, huh?
I know I don't know, so I'm here trying to know.
Let's keep it going. Somebody said what they said, Brother Rich, please add the book list. Family, just until somebody adds the book, family, you could just rewind the video. I've done that for years. If I'm watching it, just rewind it, family. That's it. Rewind it and write it down. Until somebody adds the list or I add it, just rewind it, family. That's it. Just do that.
I mean, what? I mean, I can show all.
I want to keep on with the questions.
Oh, okay.
We'll that'll be another 10 minutes. Let's get. How did the ancestors know America was shaped like a turtle?
And being able to know that there are beings that travel interdimensionally, they understand that looking down, as we have seen in, I think it's in Arizona and New Mexico, you have landmass where you see spiders, you see other insects that they've drawn. You only can see them from space. And so we have a connection as being a cosmic citizen, or what we call aliens. The thing is that even the part of this being looked at as remotely as OBE, you can do an out-of-body experience and go and hover yourself above this continent. I mean, this continent called Turtle Island. When I was young in the Museum of Science and Industry, they were showing us something that was technology. This was back in the 60s. Museum of Science had the power of 10. And what they did was you saw a dot, and then you hit the button and it'd go a power 10 and it showed a landmass. Then you hit the power 10 again. It showed a wider landmass with streets and roads and all of that. You hit 10 again, then this turns around and you saw somebody on the beach, and you hit 10 again, you could see what they were reading in their book. Because what they had done with technology is being able to, as above, they could get above and see what's going on below. This is how that they mapped out all of this through satellite. This is what Elon Musk has done when he's bought Twitter, because what he has now is satellites, and he has a satellite system with satellite stations that he can not use the internet, not use 5G. He can use his satellites, is what he's doing with Ukraine. But see, it's one thing that man is now gotten awakened, and her name is, it's a sister. She's an astrophysicist. She used to live in Sweden. She's in the UK now. Susan Joy Renison. Susan Joy Renison. She was the one to introduce United States to space weather, because where we are in the galaxy, we have not been in 26,000 years, and there are energies here that are not recorded. And what is going on is what we have is called the solar minimum and the solar maximum. The sun rests for about 11 or 12 years, and then it peaks up for another 12 years or more. And what it does is sends off CMEs, coronal mass ejections. 1854, it knocked out the telegraph system in America. 1987, you saw the transformers and the electricity in New York and Canada was out for maybe a week to 10 days. They knowing that there is coming another coronal mass ejection that's going to hit this country because they've had training maneuvers. 2015 Southwest region, the brother read what they was asking about the region. That Southwest region was called Jade Helm. They were military maneuvering and seeing how would they handle mass chaos and how would they begin to do in hurting people and emptying Walmarts and putting people into prison camps because there would be no electricity. Why do you think that Fort Carson sits there in Colorado Springs at the foot of Cheyenne Mountain? And inside the Cheyenne Mountain is a whole city. This is why they built the connection with Colorado Springs and Cheyenne Mountain, and that military base that's inside of that mountain is connected to the Denver airport. Why is it that it's connected to the 40th parallel? Ross Ben did an excellent program on the 40th parallel, but you also have Florence, Colorado, which is what's called the SHU, the Supermax prison, where they keep, this is where Al-Amin is, this is where Jeff Ford, this is where Larry Hoover, this is where all of these, the Shakur, all of these threats are 7 stories in the earth.
Wow.
Everything is moving because when that sun begins to emit those frequencies and knock out power, and the sun is kicking off more because you don't have the melanin for the protection. You may have the complexion for the protection, but you ain't got the melanin for the protection. That's why I showed you the melanin empath, because understanding this is beginning, because the highest thing just about in minerals on the New York Stock Exchange, and if you want to check it, check the price of melanin on the New York Stock Exchange.
Yeah, I just seen a video like last month when with a gentleman talking about melanin will be great to use in computers and technology because of its capabilities.
Right, because you mixing carbon with silica. What did I shared earlier? Moving from carbon to silica. Solar panels. Because we absorb and through melanin. It turns it into energy. This is why, how is it that we didn't have such a massive epidemic on the continent of Africa? Is because of the sun, the melanin, and the D3 was not deficient there because everybody gets plenty of sunlight.
Somebody asked in the questions, the chat's moving so fast I done lost the question, but they asked, are there any portals in the Grand Canyon? I hear about that a lot. Portals.
Oh yeah, that was, well, we did a ceremony in 2009 called the Return of the Ancestors, that we brought every elder and medicine person from around all the indigenous tribes, from the Eskimos down to the Aborigines down in Australia. We brought the Tibetan monks. We had all of them there in Sedona for 10 days because they came to tell us the prophecy, and that the eagle and the condor is that in that ice age that I spoke about that happened, the earth was froze. So they had to take the people here on Turtle Island through the caverns, through Shambhala, back over to the continent, and be able to keep them there until the ice age melted and the land was safe to come back again. And what came out of that, like in the ark, came up was the condor took the indigenous people and flew them back to the south, and the eagle was here in the north. And we had to come together because the prophecy in 2012 was coming, and it said that the eagle and the condor would have to come together in the Grand Canyon is because that's where people got saved. That's why all of the mountains in the Grand Canyon, you have the Isis, Horus, all of them are named Egyptians. And in 1921, I think it was about 1921, Smithsonian archaeologist was riding down the Grand Canyon, the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, and saw these caves and began to explore and found massive hieroglyphs, sarcophagus, mummies, and a chainway of a wagon wheel spoke that had roads going out as you went into this cave and went deeper down into it. Yeah, there are portals in them. And in Arizona, they have what's called South Mountain and God's Gateway. And Arizona is a very important part because the Vatican has an observatory with the only binocular telescope looking through a golden binocular telescope, and the telescope is called the Lucifer.
In Arizona.
Yes, on a sacred mountain of the indigenous people.
And they do a lot of stuff on these sacred mountains, man.
Because they know it's portals and it's aligned with the heavens. This is why we knew to be in certain places at certain times of a season, and that these alignments bring down energy. And if you know how to use your energy, just like the Pyramid of Giza, it's not a tomb. It was a transport station in which the way that the outside of the pyramid was built, covered with limestone and a gold cap on the top, the bim stone. When you go inside in the king's chamber and the queen's chamber, there was a sarcophagus. And the way in which the granite, remember I said Georgia's the granite capital. When you take that granite and you pitch it in certain ways to where you get acoustics, to where when you go into a mantra and you put that person into a crystal granite sarcophagus and you began to transport through the mantras of vibration, his spirit can travel back into the cosmos, or it can bring people into what we call a wormhole. That's why when they did, when Roddenberry did the thing of Star Trek, he had to start with the person who talks to the universe, Lieutenant Oruhu. The black woman talks to the universe. And then you had the next one, who was guiding the ship and navigating, was not able to see, but using transmission through his third eye, navigating LeVar Burton. Next, you had Deep Space Nine at the wormhole, black man with his son, the captain of the space station, became the prophet. All of this. I tell you one great sci-fi person. Where is she at? Octavia Butler.
Right.
She was one of the great sci-fi writers that.
Shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Hit that like button.
You want to know about sci-fi? You think Sophia was bad? Check her out.
Yeah. Octavia Butler.
Parable of the Sword. This is a powerful one. Can you see what's going at her head? Sperm.
I got it. You know, when you was talking just now, brother, I got like a deja vu feeling, man. Got like this deja vu feeling, man. I know that's why I know Son's real powerful about this show, man. Son is definitely real powerful about this show.
Well, I thank us, Brian, and I commend you because, like I shared with you when we was off camera, Dr. Clark used to call it the New Jack Scholars. You're the ones that is now taking, we're passing the torch, because I'm an elder. Only thing I got left to be is an ancestor. But I have to stop being a generational thief, because we as elders have a wealth of encyclopedias. My office right now, any direction I go is books.
It's books.
Books. It says, behold the word of our ancestors. They are written in books. Open them and study their wise counsel. That's why I said the most important thing in the book is the black, because the words are in black. We are important.
Let's get to one more question. Yo, we gonna have to rewind this a lot, right, family? This is something I'm gonna watch this this one a couple of times. All right, Kel Jones, your question is so long, my brother or my sister. Let me because I want to get to a couple, let me ask, because I seen you post this a couple of times. All right, what exactly? All right, he says, what exactly is our plane of existence? Why do we live in an ice? We do live in an ice dome, which rules out the possibility of physical space exploration. Yet we say that planets orbit each other. What is all of this exactly? Did you understand that, my brother?
What he's saying, the ice dome is cold in space. I mean, you got stars all over the space, and but we're in a galaxy amongst trillions of galaxies that we're in. And the galaxy that we're in, what it does is the same thing a woman wombs does. It takes in, the black hole takes in light and gives off stars. The woman's black hole takes in light and gives off life, because that million sperm, there's one that's lit, that's full of energy, that makes it to that egg to become you, because we're all 1 in a million shot.
So
but that's what he's describing, because in space is cold. There's no sun that can warm the universe.
So physical space exploration, that's impossible?
No, because that's why I said OBE. You can travel to other galaxies.
Physical space exploration. He says physical space exploration. Is that impossible?
But you can travel through a body, or you can travel through the mind. The spirit does not know the difference. That's why virtual reality and augmented reality is so dangerous. Because you putting on goggles and you're taking yourself and thinking you are an avatar and you're living in this other dimensional world is dangerous. You can do all of that with your own, if you remember.
Let me see if I can get one more question before we get out of here. Somebody said flat Earth versus the sphere. You know that's a big debate whether Earth is flat or not. What's your thoughts on that before we get out of here, my brother?
Life is a circle. How do we keep going around? If it's flat, it's no circulation. It's not a circle. The sun rolls, and this is the part that gets it is that if it's flat Earth, is this flat Earth moving, or who's moving? The sun and the moon and everything. We just moving flatly through on the conveyor belt. That's one dimensional. That's one dimension. In concave, the arc bends towards justice. The universe of art, the universal law, the arc bends towards justice. And how is it that we're thinking that we're on flat land? But I tell you, the thing I learned about when I was in Vietnam, standing on a ship once, and you stand there and you look at the horizon, which is 20 miles out, and you turn and you'll see the circumference is not flat because you would just see straight that way. You see the circumference of water in a circle.
I know I said that was going to be the last question. Real quick, this one. Your thoughts on the Anunnaki? I got to get your take on that. Somebody asked. I got to get your take. There's been a lot of Anunnaki talk lately. I want to get your take on that,
Well,
my brother.
Zachariah Stitchin did a good job, you know, and he did. And the thing is that they're beings from other galaxies. There's the Galactic Federation. And these beings have been in existence in this galaxy and outside of this galaxy. And what they have done is that they've allowed certain beings to come and do certain things here in order for us to see how we're going to evolve. And so what we're doing is, if you go back to the movie 2001 Space Odyssey, how did it start off? A big black slab of granite called a monolith and a gorilla with a bone. We're not a monolith. We're a human being.
Okay. All right, family. Once again, man, I want to thank us. I want to thank us tonight. I want to thank us tonight. This was an absolutely magnificent show. Everybody in the chat.
Short notice too.
Oh yeah, short. I just very short notice. Like I said, brother, I seen your video, and the individual that told me about you sent your number, and I contacted you like that. So it wasn't. I didn't. It just happened fast, brother. I just talked to you a couple of days ago.
I'm not complaining. I'm loving it, man.
No, I'm loving it too. I'm making a point. Like this was, it just happened fast.
Right. And the part for it is that that's letting us know. See, this is how everything is speeding up. When you think it, it's already manifesting because it's within. And then how did that light travels at 186,000 miles a second? Thought travels 300 million miles per second. So when you think it, it's already gone, and that's it.
Man, we had a packed room.
Thought.
Yeah, indeed. We had a packed room tonight. We had over 2,000 people tuned in simultaneously. That's a hell of a university, right? Over 2,000 people sitting down in the seats. We're listening to you talk. That's a hell of a university.
I really commend it because I've been watching since their beginning, Dr. Greg Carr and Karen Hunter. And they're doing their YouTube narrative and Nubia. And that's where it really gets it, because this is what our ancestors, so this is what Dr. Clark said, pass it on. Asa, Jake Carruthers, all of those elders, Dr. Ben, saying that each one teach one. It don't cost you nothing to share what you found, because they went through in order for us to have it now. Because quiet as it's kept, they are trying to extinguish this knowledge. That's called the Mandela Effect, and they're trying to say that they're changing this, or these books are out of print, or this is no longer, this is what CRT is about, because they don't want you to know their story and what they did to the world.
Indeed. Leave your contact information, my brother, for the people.
People want to get in contact, Kwame Sunhorse at gmail.com.
Kwame Sunhorse at gmail.com. Your email is going to be bombarded with people hitting you up, my brother. They're going to come at you, my brother. So, hey, I want to thank you, and I want to get you on here again sometime in the near future. I know you're going out of town. We could connect sometime, probably next month in May or something like that. But I definitely want to have you on here again. Your wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and I appreciate us for tonight and what we brought to the table, and everybody listening. This is Brother Rich, my brother Kwame.
Appreciate love you also, bro. That's
right.
Another one too.
We getting out of here, family. We're gonna see you next time. I'm gonna have the brother on again next month, so you're gonna see him again, family. Peace, family. Take care.
All right. Peace.